We have a special guest, Roy Ellis from Midland Community Group. Welcome, Roy. It's great to have you here.
Hi, Cher. Great to be here.
So, a lot of questions about the Midland Community Group. How long ago was this begun?
Oh, we began about 15 months ago, somewhere around the last election time.
Right. And what really sparked you to want to get involved with this kind of group? How would you actually characterize the Midland Community Group, first of all, for those people who've never heard of it before?
MidlandCommunity.ca is a group that is actively involved in what I call the three-legged stool. There's really three things that we want to keep in balance. The first is taxation, the second is friendly policy, and the third is economic development. You know, the gold is really buried in how we grow this town going forward.
Right. So why you? Why did you want to take on this project?
I was bored. No, I'm kidding. The reason was I had several dinner conversations with people who were expressing a frustration in the taxes, the local taxes they pay. And I finally said to myself, okay, I'm going to fund this somewhat. I'm going to do some things that would create the debate around what fair taxation might look like.
Right. And what kind of interest did you find out in the community about taxation especially? How big has the group grown in the last 15 months?
We're about 400 people now.
Wow.
From all walks of life. People that are retired on fixed income, work in retail, live at Tiffin or on the water. And we really like to think of ourselves as not a special interest group because, everyone directly or indirectly, unless you're homeless, you pay taxes, local taxes. So we see ourselves as a group that want to create the debate around this issue and try and get local council and senior town staff to embrace the notion that we need to control town spending more efficiently.
Right. So, how often do you meet? What's involved in keeping this group going and getting the actual work done? I've seen you at council, bringing in your deputations. And how does that happen? 400 people, how do you keep that organized?
Well, that's a great question. We probably meet as a core group. We have a core steering team of about 10 people in the neighborhood of every 6 weeks, just to make sure that we're on focus with what's important to us and our key mission. We communicate regularly with all the members. We do blast emails, we call it. What we really do well, I believe, is we attend, either myself or a member or several members from our group, pretty well every council meeting, general committee meeting, urban node meeting, planning meeting if we can, police services board meeting. We try and attend these meetings so that we have the facts.
Right.
Because it's all about having the right facts, because we don't want to get into a discussion where we're disputing numbers.
Right.
Because that's not a healthy debate. It takes you off focus, as you would know.
Now, how hard is it? Now, I've talked to some councilmen who said it's pretty hard to get the real numbers at council, even as a councillor.
Well, they say that, do they?
They have.
Well,
and I'm not going to name any names, but there have been a couple who said,
well, if they say
it can be
that,
tough to really pull the accurate numbers and know what do they mean. So, what kind of background? Do you have a bit of a business background that you bring into this to try and identify what you're actually looking at?
Well, we've got an extraordinary team of lawyers, of great accountants, financial planners, marketing people, and we lend on their experiences. But we have this, the deputation that we used for council back about 6 months ago is the case for controlling Midland town spending. And effectively, Cher, these numbers are not our numbers. We just downloaded them off the website. So every municipality is required by law to upload to the province all of their information. They're called FIRS, Financial Information Reporting. So simply what we did was we took 14 sample communities over the last little while, and we did a spreadsheet and we compared key areas against all of the communities. So these numbers are not numbers that are refutable. These are town furnished, supplied information that's on the town website. I think where some council and even ourselves at times have a challenge getting numbers is when we go a little deeper. So when we want to go into what was last year's surplus to the operating budget. Well, we don't see that, and that gets lost sometimes.
And sometimes year to year,
funds.
you'll see things are named a little differently, or this year we're calling it this and last year it was that, so trying to figure out how long have we been spending this amount of money on this particular issue. It can be very tough to find out.
Exactly, and if the councils can't get it, there's no way I'm going to get it. But again, this information has been validated by the town. It's their information, and all we're trying to do, again, is show how we stack up to like-minded communities that we compete for, or compete with, for the pot of gold. And the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is this thing called growth, because you can raise spending at all sorts of levels if you have unprecedented growth and new people coming in that will pay for that spending. But when your growth is virtually flat, we've experienced over the last 5 years 3 years of population growth in Midland. 0.3% population growth.
Right.
So if it's 0.3, and yet you're spending at maybe 5 or 6%, adding 6 or 7% in various departments to the spend, then how can that sustain itself?
Right.
So we need growth at the end of the day to be able to spend the types of monies that this council is accustomed to spending.
Right. Now this case for controlling Midland town spending, does that kind of interpret things so that someone like myself who hates accounting could have a look at this and understand rather than having to gather the numbers myself? Is this available on the site?
We believe so, yes. It is available on the site, and actually we break down departments as well. We will look at fire, we'll look at police, we'll look at parks and rec and library, and we'll actually show what that trend looks like over the period of time. What may be interesting to some of your viewers is that, we've increased from 2000 to 2009 because there's a lag on the reporting on FERS, okay? It's about a 1 to 2 year lag. So we don't have 10s and 11s yet to update this package. But for example, from 2000 to 2009, local, like we're not talking now about province and Simcoe County, local tax spending is up 82%.
Okay, well, we are going to go into this a little bit more detailed. We're going to take a little break right now, and when we come back after the break, we will talk about all three of those areas that you were referring to.
Thank you.
SPCA getting ready for their Snow Day Family Day event. It all goes to a good cause, getting these little guys adopted. This Family Day, come out and enjoy the SPCA Snow Day. Enjoy a day of fun in the snow with your family, friends, and pets on leash at Scout Valley, Aurelia, just off the 15th line. The price is $5 per person or $10 per family, with all proceeds going to abused and neglected animals in Aurelia and surrounding areas. For more information, call 705-326-1966. Well, it's no Green Gables, but to these guys, it's a palace. Oh! Running until February 19th at the Georgian College Theatre, the Kempenfelt Community Players present Anne of Green Gables the musical. This is a classic tale of an orphan girl. For more information, go to kempenfeltplayers.com. Have a great weekend, Simcoe County.
This is your chance to see everything you're missing for free. Have the latest series from HBO, Showtime, and Starz, uncut and commercial-free, whenever and wherever you want. The Movie Network On Demand free preview starts February 11th. Don't miss it. Exclusively on Channel 100 and RogersOnDemand.com.
I think you guys are doing a great job, and you should keep up the good work.
Welcome back to Politically Speaking. Our guest this evening is Roy Ellis from Midland Communities. So that was a nice little message. Sounds like people feel you're doing a good thing with this group.
Well, thank you so much. Encouragement is very important. We've labored hundreds of hours on putting this information together. So when you hear people, the customer saying, we appreciate your work, that makes me feel good. So to my team, thank you.
You're not in it for the money.
No, no.
So just before the break, we were talking about some of the change since 2000 to 2009. Can you explain a little bit deeper about what's been going on with our spend and our taxes?
Okay, well, as I mentioned, 82% from 2000 to 2009 increase to local taxation. And again, that's what we control. The Town of Midland Council controls that spend. And as a backdrop, CPI has risen only 20% over that period of time. And our our new citizens arriving to Midland has grown 5%. So our population up 5, our CPI 20, and our taxation 82%, of which a key part of that is 39% increase in full-time town staffing.
Right. What does CPI stand for?
Just call it cost of living.
Okay.
Inflation.
Okay. All these numbers.
Yes.
Not me. So, taxes, big issue, you mentioned. Another one was friendly policy. And the third was economic development. Can you explain a little bit more about friendly policy?
Yeah, well, friendly tax policy, you know, there was lots of discussion about employment area review and what that should look like. There's discussion around our shoreline bylaw that we attended and we spoke at. There's even discussion around our vision, and we've furnished Town Council with a copy of a concise one-page vision that we thought was appropriate, that got rid of all the fluff and the superfluous, words, but really talked about what we could really aspire to be when we grow up, when we're successful in 15, 20 years' time from now. Yeah.
And the other side, the economic development, it all kinds of ties together, doesn't it?
And I think on this one, I was happy to see that during the strategy planning sessions, the council embraced that as their #1 priority, because clearly we need to get Midland back to work.
Right.
You know, we've seen some recent announcements in some major employers where they're downsizing. This is very disconcerting. When employers leave, it actually shifts a greater burden of taxation on the backs of the residents. So it's critical that for the sake of our youth and for the sake of spending and controlling spending and making sure everyone pays their fair share, that we attract businesses.
Right. Now, there's been question about if we try to cut our taxes, then we can't afford to create the infrastructure that will attract the economic development side of it. How do you get around that vicious cycle of our taxes are too high so our businesses aren't attractive, but if we cut the taxes we can't support the town, and then again...
The chicken and the egg.
Yes. Yeah. How do you get around that? Do you have any suggestions on that?
Well, I always say it's never an either or. It's an either and. I think you need a strategy to, and we haven't cut taxes, by the way. We haven't cut any taxes. We are still positive spend year over year.
Right.
In 2010, we spent about $779,000 additional monies. In 2011, we spent almost $900,000 additional monies. In 2012, and with some recognition here to Majority Council, we kept that spend under about $100,000, but we haven't cut anything. And it's a bit of a misnomer to create this, this fear, which some people do, that suggests that we're cutting our way to prosperity, which we're not.
Right.
So I think what it is we're asking everyone to, let me characterize it this way. We have a 700-foot tanker in Midland Harbor. And what we're trying to do in the first pillar is turn that around. Well, we haven't turned it around yet. We've sort of stopped it halfway.
Right.
And now we have the ability, if we embrace this debate and if we do something about this, we have the ability to pick up a little bit of tailwind and momentum and make a difference on this front. So I'm not quite sure we're there yet, but a first good step was to stop the bleeding, but we still have a lot more work to do.
Right. So how do we reduce the taxes that the homeowner is going through without cutting?
Well, I think the first thing is you question everything we do. What was appropriate 10, 15, 20 years ago may not be appropriate today. We have to look at every delivery model we have. For example, and we have great police services and we have great fire services, but those two models, if they're spending 5, 6, 7% a year, in order to sustain themselves, we need to grow the customer base.
Right.
If we're not adding households and we're not adding people, and yet we have these added expenses year over year, then it just goes on the backs of the current taxpayers. We have a rec center and a library that we subsidize $2.5 million a year. Yet not only Midlanders use these great facilities, we pay for the facilities, but there's a small charge for outlying neighborhoods to participate in those experiences, and maybe that model needs to be looked at, because $2.5 million is about 12% of the local tax dollar for every household. So if you're paying 2,000 local taxes a year, it's $240 that somebody would pay just for those two entities alone.
Right.
So, and then you get into sharing resources with neighboring communities, efficiencies. You get into using the private sector instead of, adding more staff perhaps to the town. You get into competitive bidding, all those types of things. But there's no sacred cows in this exercise. Everything's up for grabs, and everything has to be discussed and debated. And I have confidence that council, at the end of the day, will make the right decision.
And I think we're seeing that at the federal, the provincial, as well as the municipal level, that people are saying it's time to really stop doing things the way we've always done them. And there are some huge challenges to trying to get a government to say, okay, we're going to just completely switch. We're flipping the coin and starting from zero and saying, let's prove we need to do this.
I think you're right, Cher. It's happening all over the world. You don't have to go far. Well, it is quite far. Greece, Portugal, Italy, Spain, Wisconsin in the U.S. Look at the city of Toronto. You can get ahead of this noise and you can get ahead of the issue, or you can wait till the tsunami hits you. What we tried to do 15 or 16 months ago was say, hey, Houston, we've got a problem. We need to start talking about it, have the debate. It's not personal. Some people take this thing personally because they see it as maybe my legacy or the last chapter of my book, the book I'm writing. The denouement is not exactly how it should have been written. It's not personal. There's no one at council and no one in Midland Town that wakes up every morning and says, we want to do the wrong thing.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how we got here. You go to history for learnings, but it's what we do tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock that matters to us.
Right. How common is this, that there is a group of citizens that get together, and they don't all run for council, but they create a group that just lets them look into these kinds of issues? Is this a one-of-a-kind organization, or do these exist in other places?
Yeah, they exist in other places. I've had the opportunity to Google some other towns, and there's quite a few out there, actually. A lot of them are short-lived. They sort of wrap their arms around an issue for 6 months, a year. The ones that have a broader mandate, like ours, taxation is something and spending is something we just got to get control of and arrest, and then hopefully we can spend a lot less energies talking about that. If I could spend 200 hours, which I spent probably last year, talking about economic development, growing the town, maximizing Midland's magic, I'd much prefer to spend my time, efforts, and energy on that strategy than saying, hey folks, we got a problem. Please, please, we've got a problem. And it's taken some councillors and even senior staff a moment or two to appreciate that we actually do have a problem.
Now, I noticed in a recent newspaper that some of the councilmen were given an opportunity to talk about Midland Community Group and had some beautiful words to say about you. How did that feel?
Well, I think it always feels good when first off, I think the notion that council and public service welcome people who take their own time to the debate. And I think that feels great because, the council chambers used to be empty until our group was formed. And we've had sometimes 150 people there, which I just think is marvelous because it is about the people and it is for the people.
Right. And it can be very tough if you do have a concern to just approach council on your own. And, if you're somebody that's sitting in town right now saying, you know what, that we have dark alleys that should have more lighting or should be patrolled more, for them to then say, I am going to sit here all by myself and figure out how to draw up a proposal to council, and then I'm going to call and get myself put on the agenda, and then I'm going to go to that council meeting and stand up and shake in front of the whole council and describe my issue. That's tough. And if they were to bring something like that to your group, you could perhaps help them with that a little bit? We
could, as long as it's aligned with our three sort of pillars,
right.
The three-legged stool. I get lots of emails about, garbage doesn't get picked up on my street, or this doesn't happen here.
Right.
And I try and stay at 10,000 feet with these folks right now and say, you know what, that is very important, but that might be a my store issue. A my store issue is it affects 5, 10 special interest groups, 20, 30, 50. What we're trying to do is tackle those things that are germane to 17,000 people.
Right. Right, so that must be challenging, trying to stay that focus with 400 members.
It is challenging, but you know, no means no. So sometimes I just have to say, sorry, not today, low energy. But maybe when we get these animals here wrestled to the ground, we could look at some of those things.
Right. So what is your role at Midland Community?
I guess I'm the spokesperson today.
Right.
Not everyone likes to do that. Yeah, I'm basically one of the founders that started at this dinner table discussion one night, and my role is to basically pull the group together to make sure that our goals are common, are universal for the town, as I said, 17,000 people. To make sure we're tackling the right issues, but also to make sure we do it with class.
Right.
You know, we've never made anything that we're doing here personal. Some people have taken what we're doing personal, which is very unfortunate, and that's something they have to, you know, live with themselves. And when they go to bed at night, they'll think about whether that was right, wrong, or indifferent. But we don't get into those negative debates. We're very positive people, and we really want Midland's future to arrive ahead of schedule.
Interesting. And what do you see is some of the strongest focus that we should be having for our future?
Well,
you mentioned
certainly
you've got the one-page vision.
Yeah.
Can you give me some of the highlights from
Well,
that?
certainly the downtown, like that. You know, I retired here with my wife 5, 6 years ago, and the beauty and the attraction is the jewel called Georgian Bay, right? The water is beautiful, it's pristine. I'm a bit of a boater. I like flying, and it's just, you know, I was just out in Vancouver last week and on the islands, and you know, it doesn't compare to Midland. So I chose Midland to retire because it's beautiful. And I just want to make sure that we keep maximizing that beauty. The downtown, it bothers me when I see for sale, for lease, for rent. I think we need a strategy around making the downtown core vibrant. I get the fact that we have big box stores out on the highway, but that's not our charm. Okay, that's a necessity perhaps, but it's not our charm. So we need to maximize that.
And it's tough, because
sorry.
even one small store being empty does give that impression of emptiness. Because I have looked at some of the studies. The BIA actually did get a study that was done for the business improvement area, and it did show that the downtown was actually at a higher level of capacity than the average, lower vacancy rates and busier than the average downtown. So this may be something that we're seeing in a lot of towns, that the downtown just doesn't have that same vibrancy that it used to have. And whether it's about renting the stores, or whether it's about events and making sure that that is a focus of what's going on in the community, because there are quite a few stores that have been rented in the last little while, and it's just getting people down there, getting the activity happening.
Well, yeah, and that's a great sign. And again, when we get back to taxation, you know, if you're a landlord or you're a lessee, directly or indirectly, you're paying that tax. So what we try and do, this is why that pillar is so important, because if you're starting out a new business, you want to manage your costs, you want to control your costs. And these costs are passed on, and we often call it triple net, you know, costs in a lease arrangement. But we need to make sure that that pillar's in place, and as well as friendly policy. If you want to renovate and spend some money, what's the signage bylaw look like? You know, is it flexible? That's what we mean by friendly policy. Can I get started in business real fast? And then the third one is exactly what we're talking about, and that's growing the town through new business. So.
Right. So that, again, increasing the tax base. What other things would you do about the downtown and the waterfront that would make it more attractive, more attractive to business?
Yeah, the notion of tourism is huge. You know, we have, I'm not sure how many boat slips we have down there, but we must have 2,500 as a guess. And, you know, cruise ships is starting to show up again, you know, on the Great Lakes. It'd be great to see some cruise ships,
Right.
you know, with a band welcoming them at 6 in the morning and they go shopping. I'm not sure everyone wants to get up at 6 in the morning to open their stores, but, you know, it'd be great to have those types of things. But, you know, we've got some great cultural icons, you know, in the neighborhood. We've got the Cultural Center, which is on the horizon, which is imminent. You know, you've got the, you know, the library, you've got the Y, you've got the waterfront, as we talked about. We've just got a lot happening, and we just got to make sure that we promote that the right way.
Right. So there's nothing you'd change on the waterfront? No suggestions on how to make that?
Well, there's a few eyesores down there, but they've been around a long time, and you know, it might take a moment or two for that to change. If you know, if we could have something you know, new and modern on the water, a convention. I mean, but this all takes money, and these are dreams. These really are dreams that today I don't think well, we can work towards that as a vision, 2031. It's probably not the first order of business. I think the mayor has recently had some summits with educators, Georgia College, and with medical faculty, and you know, they are very good starting places to build infrastructure and grow jobs, knowledge-based jobs. I sit as a commissioner on the airport. We've got some good activity happening at the airport, and some expansion of private and commercial activity. And a lot about the airport is connecting people and connecting products. So, you know, there's some low-hanging fruit that I think we have to go after. And then there's these magnanimous, you know, ideas and dreams that we can have as an aspiration.
And that's a tough one, because you do have that multi-use waterfront down there. It is not just a tourism destination. And if you try to turn it into that, then you start ripping out some of the core businesses that have been there for so long that are not tourism related at all.
They may be paying significant freight too, right? They're paying their way and then some. So
that's right. That's right. So
trade-offs.
changing that. Yes, exactly. So we looked at the downtown. You mentioned education and healthcare. Have you got those in a recommendation of how that may play a role in economic development in our area?
No, we haven't tackled any of that at this time. I kudos to the mayor and council for having these summits and for engaging those folks around the discussion about how we can grow and what that would look like. Ours really was, you know, to put out there the immediate needs and issues, sort of stop the bleeding, like I said, and then at the same time run on a parallel track to ideas and ways to grow both the population and grow the business community. Okay.
Well, I've got a few more questions that I'm going to want to come back with after the break. Some of the things like how people can get involved and why they should be involved. So I'm going to want to bring that along as well, because granted your group is at 400. I'm not sure how easily you all fit into one space right now, but if we could double that or triple that and get people really interested, that would be kind of exciting.
It'd be a lot of fun.
So we're going to take a short commercial break now, and we will come back after and talk about how other local Midland people could become involved in your group.
Sounds great.
All right.
Joyfully scores again!
I'm a TV, and my owner is a huge NHL fan, which is awesome because we just ordered NHL Center Ice. You get total control with up to 40 out-of-market games a week, many in HD. My man wants to see Canucks, Penguins? Boom! Leafs, Flyers, Oilers, Red Wings? Things will get so crazy in here every night, I may not even stay screwed into the wall. Now let me rest up. I got 8 games on tonight. NHL Center Ice. The game lives where you do.
Get NHL Center Ice as part of the Super Sports Pack, the ultimate sports package for the ultimate sports fan.
I'm Brianna Booth, host of High School Rush. Each week I'll be bringing you all the news, views, and interviews from high schools throughout Simcoe County. Sports, clubs, or news events. If it's part of your school, it's part of the Rush. That's High School Rush. Only on Rogers TV.
And welcome back to Politically Speaking on Rogers TV. We're talking to the spokesperson for Midland Community, Roy Ellis, and we were just discussing before the break how people can get involved. Group of 400 already, but you know, if only 400 people voted, we would say that was a pretty low turnout.
We would indeed.
So what can people do? Would it be valuable for them to be involved, and it would be valuable for the group to be involved?
You know, I just quickly before I answer that, if I could share, on the voting turnout, I think about 39% of us, and that was one of our goals and objectives last time when we formed this group too, 39% of us came out to vote. And if I could appeal to those folks watching tonight on TV, next election, it doesn't matter who you vote for, just come out and be part of this process. It's a great gift that we've been given, and we truly should use that. So how do you get involved? Our website is midlandcommunity.ca, and you can literally just Google that, and you know, it will pop up. You'll see our face page, and then you'll see about us to see if our goals and our values are aligned with those things that are important to you. And then there's a section that says contact us, and by all means please contact us. And then there's also where you can write a comment, a section, and not all the comments are favorable. Maybe we're on the wrong side of some discussions and some issues, which is fine. But again, we're all about having the debate and getting to a better place. So that's how you get involved, and it'd be great to have more folks so that we can truly get the pulse of the majority versus, you know, 400 that started out as 10. Right. 400 is fairly symbolic. I think the MP or MPP would tell you if they got a petition that showed up in their office over an issue with 400 signatures, they would react with a great amount of concern. Right. Any politician would tell you that. So 400 is great, but it's not the destination. So please, please join the team. We'll put you on our mailing list, and you'll be informed as to what's happening in Midland at the political level.
Well, that is great. So when they do get involved, you know, sometimes people talk about Canadians saying that our biggest trait is that we're apathetic. And I think other people look at that and say, well, no, we just don't want to be rabble-rousers. We don't want to push things. Whereas, from your standpoint, this is a responsibility we have. As citizens in the town, if we want this town to grow, it is our responsibility to pay attention, to actually look at what is happening in our community and see what we can do to assist. And sometimes just bringing an issue to light is what is needed. You know, shining a light in an area that somebody has overlooked because it isn't the vocal majority that is looking at the issue, or isn't the elected officials that are looking at it. As you say, town council being empty during council meetings. Yeah. That's saying, you know, you're doing fine, go ahead, we don't care. And reality being, maybe we care, but we just don't want to, as I said, go in one at a time and approach council. So it really is a responsibility. And would you say business owners, house owners, who should be involved in this? Everyone can be involved. We even have a poll on our website that we try and replenish every 6 to 8 weeks that talks about, do you think the rate of spending is sustainable? Or what do you think of our recent current behavior amongst certain people? We actually do a little bit of a poll and a little a litmus test, and we get hundreds of people respond to that. And again, it sort of tells us, you know, where the appetite is, where the energy might be, and if we were, and where we might want to go fishing, you know, depending on that question we ask. So, see what what people care about. Now, your background is in business. So you're not coming at this with I don't know how to run anything kind of standpoint. Can you just give us a very short biography of
As a youngster, I used to deliver 3 newspapers a day, 350 newspapers. I get up in the morning and do the Globe, then the Telegram and the Star. So I've been in business since I was about 14.
Right.
A little babysitting and a gardening business, but seriously, after education, I went on to work for a Fortune 100 company. Retired from that job about 5 years ago. Have been fortunate enough to work in many, many countries around the world. Had tens of thousands of employees responsible under me in terms of their welfare and well-being in human resources. And ran a $2 billion market. So I have some background in business, a tiny bit. But you know, none of that really matters. What you did yesterday doesn't mean much, right? It really means what you start doing tomorrow morning.
Have any idea of how to run an organization and the reality of the complications involved and the monies that must be spent even though you wish you couldn't be spending them. I think that's one of the things that people need to recognize, that you're not coming into this with a little pie in the sky. I don't actually know how it runs, but stop spending too much and cut my taxes. You really are coming into this knowing it's sustainability, accountability, responsibility, not just fix my issue.
But you know what's really important though is it's hard work to fix this stuff. And if I could leave council even with a message, it's you got to wrestle these things to the ground. You know, maybe the budget or controlling Midland Town spending discussion, maybe it's not just 6 3-hour meetings next year. Right. You know, maybe it's 30 3-hour meetings. You've really got to get deep into these issues to understand them. What's the best delivery service? You know, what's the best costing? You know, who do we compete with? Is that model tired or is it relevant? You know, I always think about garbage. And I know this is a county issue, but if we apply this thought to what we do and decisions we make, my wife and I generate maybe waste a bag this big nowadays. Right. And if you remember 10, 15, 20 years ago, you know, there was fruit in there, there was, you know, recyclable.
All your cans and your
it was all over the place.
And
so I always ask myself, I say, why does the truck come to my place every week? And it's been coming every week forever. To get that little bag. Like when that becomes nothing, will the truck still come?
Well, it still have to come to my house.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I've got a family of 7.
Oh, you've got a family of 7. Okay, well, yeah.
Even if they just come to pick up my compost, they still got to come. I like that they've combined that.
Yes.
But yes, and you know what that is? That creativity thinking of let's have our garbage men pick up the compost too, because then it's an equal waste situation instead of, as you say, wasting the time and duplicating services.
And again, that's county, but if you bring it home, say, locally again, snow plowing. You know, we're making better tires, right? Technology's improving. We've got more four-wheel drive cars and so on and so forth. We've got more people working remotely at home, so traffic congestion might be less. Instead of plowing the streets at X centimeters, might we do it at Y centimeters? You know, I don't know the answer, but I want to ask the question, and I want somebody to give us the answer who's smarter than me.
You can always find that. Yeah. I've found no problem with that. We'll be back after this break to talk a little bit more about the progress that has been made and the progress you hope to make.
Super.
So stay with us.
SPCA getting ready for their Snow Day Family Day event. It all goes to a good cause, getting these little guys adopted. This Family Day, come out and enjoy the SPCA Snow Day. Enjoy a day of fun in the snow with your family, friends, and pets on leash at Scout Valley, Aurelia, just off the 15th line. The price is $5 per person or $10 per family, with all proceeds going to abused and neglected animals in Aurelia and surrounding areas. For more information, call 705-326-1966. Do you or your children have an interest in scouting or guiding? If so, this next event may be just right for you. Starting February 22nd, Scout and Guide Week 2012 at the Kozloff Center. Events throughout the mall on a daily basis. For more information, call 705-728-3100. Have a great weekend, Simcoe County.
Sponsorship messages on Rogers TV is an effective means of gaining television exposure for your business or product, providing high-frequency exposure at reasonable rates. With Rogers TV, you can cost-effectively communicate your promotional message. Your sponsorship messages are packaged within each airing of the program, ensuring that your message speaks directly to your target market. Contact Sponsorship Sales today.
And I just want to say that although I haven't heard of this group, the Midland Community Group, I think it's a great idea for people to have an avenue to voice their opinions so the legislators are more aware of certain issues that apply to them. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
And welcome back. We were talking before the break about a little bit about getting involved. Now, from the other side, the flip side of the coin, what kind of progress have you made in 15 months? Has it been harder than you thought it would be? Were there some surprises that you faced?
Great question. I would say it's been a little uncomfortable of late because, again, I think some people have taken our initiative personally. And again, this is business to me. You know, this is about what's good, what's right for the people, the citizens of Midland. And again, I don't want to grade people on 10 years you've done this and over 20 years you've done this. You know, what we want to do again is just have the debate. I think we've had some successes, some early successes. The shoreline bylaw was one. We didn't think that was good for Midland at this time.
Now, what was that bylaw for those who haven't seen it?
It was a little bit about legislating and further controlling dock sizes and structures on the shoreline and those types of things. We took the position that there's probably adequate control right now. Right. There's various federal legislators that are involved with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Fisheries and so on and so forth. And these matters can get very, very complex. And given the way that Georgian Bay sort of drains and you know, ebbs and flows, you know, in a given day, with a wind that changes 30 knots from the east to 30 knots from the west, the criterion that they were suggesting and put in play, it just didn't work. Right. And so it was flawed on its face. And to Council's credit and planning's credit, they saw that and they parked the initiative. So we saw that as good debate, early success. The taxation, again, controlling spending. The fact that they've gone from $779 spend to a close to $900,000 increase in spend to maybe $100,000 plus or minus, that is a modest victory, right, in the sense that we've started directionally going the right way. Now again, it'll depend on the will of this council and the progressiveness of the majority to take us to even a better place going forward.
And that just seems to come up over and over again. Your efforts with a different council might have been met with different results. And there has been some concern with the council. And when we look at what are the biggest concerns we have in our local political arena, it keeps coming back to, you say, the majority on the council. And that tends to be that same majority over and over and over again. That 5-4 split keeps coming up. Every so often we'll see something where it's a 6-3 vote and we'll go, finally, we're getting some people voting on conscience, voting on the facts, voting, and then it's boom, right back to that 5-4 split. Do you find that that is interfering with your debate with them?
I think it is, because I think sometimes it's unhealthy. I mean, we should not, you know, you must be from a different planet if you don't see that our spending needs to be controlled. So let's stop wasting energy on that discussion and debate. We have told everyone, we've showed everyone the facts. If we were to build a $300,000 home anywhere in Simcoe, and that's based on a 50-foot lot and a 1,500 square foot template, you know, which is not that big. We've had 2 builders validate this would be the price for sort of an average new building, which is what we want to attract. We are the highest local tax community, municipality in Simcoe. Fini, tout fini, it's over. That's the debate. I do not want to have that debate anymore. And for people to have that debate, it's a bit of a red herring. In fact, politically, it cost some people their careers last time around because they kept doing the spin on whether we're the highest tax, lowest tax.
Right.
You know, we've had spending that has been excessive relative to our growth, period. There's no more discussion or energy. When people sit and say, 4 councillors said that I think we haven't spent enough, okay, that bothers me because we have increased our spending.
Yes.
And we've built it on a $1.7 million base in 2010 and 11 when we had virtually low, you know, CPI growth. So I would actually like to suggest that we get that 1.7 million back to the taxpayers. But no, we're adding to it. So let's not have that discussion. And then I think the second thing that I get concerned about is behavior. I think it's important that our elected officials act and behave respectfully, and this whole email thing I'm not happy with. We shouldn't be denigrating people. We shouldn't have little circles of people getting emails that undermine agendas. I don't stand for that. I don't like it, and but I don't want to talk about it anymore. We need to move on and get to bigger fish to fry.
The challenge, I think, though, is how do we move on?
Well, that's Gordon McKay's the mayor, and he needs to have a little session with the other 8. And they need to hold hands and kiss and make up. They need to do whatever they need to do, but they need to get focused on those key things that are important to, not them, but the people of Midland.
Right.
We are the customer. We are the customer, and they were elected by us to serve. And the town employees are there to do the job as they're instructed, but we are the customer. And I would like to say just for 5-10 seconds, because I think this has been misunderstood, we think the Midland town employees are a phenomenal workforce. They've done great work for us. In fact, I was here just 3 or 4 weeks and I wrote a note to the town saying, I've been in Chicago and all these other places where there's tons of snow, and I can't believe how efficient people are at the town. This is not about the town employees. This is about council holding hands and agreeing on a strategy that they execute, and they park their egos at the door.
And you have hopes for that?
I have hopes for that. And I would say to those that don't want to be part of that team, step aside. There's other people that'll do it.
And are there options for that? You know, if somebody's sitting there on a council saying, this is frustrating, this is more stress than I want, can they just step down?
Sure, yeah.
Because I know we can't get rid of them.
No, that's really the only
unless
thing
they
you can
commit some laws and are convicted of you know, commit some crimes that are actual laws, then we convict them and off they go, which is a bit extreme. But the only other option is if they say, I'm sick of it.
Yeah, you know, it would be something like, I don't like the agenda. I wasn't voted, in my mind, you know, I wasn't voted to support this agenda. It's been said by some councillors that I'm not here to cut services. My constituents tell me I'm not here to cut services. And if that's what we're doing, which we haven't yet, by the way, that's a bit of a misnomer. If they don't like the agenda and they're in the minority, they have a choice to make. You know, they can step aside. But outside of that, you know, we wait 3 years, and the majority council will do what they have to do.
Right. So, waiting that 3 years and seeing some economic development, what kind of hope have you got from the 4 mayors that have got together and are creating that economic development initiative? Have you been privy to any of the information coming out of that?
No, I've seen the document, and I've been at the council meetings where Mayor McKay has spoken about it. I think any time like-minded people come together to talk about common solutions and efficiencies and pooling resources, I think this is a magical moment.
Because that's really the flip side of what we're really seeing at Midland Council is with those 4 mayors in the municipality just working together and really committed to saying, as a whole, what can we do to support each other so that as a whole we are all better.
Right. Yeah, and I think, again, I think it's just it's a great first initiative. We do have some, you know, some differences, as we know, but where we have synergies, where we have some efficiencies, I think we charge the hill and exploit them.
Right.
I think it'd be great for, at the end of the day, it's best for the customer, again, the taxpayer. It all comes down to who is the customer.
Right.
And so if, you know, we can share some synergies with maybe, what, 50,000 plus people, and you've got the scale, and then you should have a reduction in costs. You know, tourism. you know, we could do things together on the tourism front.
Absolutely.
In fact, the tall ships is something where 3 of the municipalities are participating on the tall ships. And, you know, one is taking 2 ships and one is taking 3 and the other is 3. And if they could sort of decide on what they might want to promote locally in those towns during that event, that would be great, because we certainly don't want to compete. Maybe someone's got a farmer's market, or maybe we've got artisans over here, maybe we've got bus tours over here. But it's a good thing to sort of share the synergies versus, and exploit the synergies versus compete, that's for sure.
Now, when we look at those 4 together, Midland and Penetang, very high taxation rate. What about Tay and Tiny? How do they compare to us? If we're attracting businesses and people to a region of 4 municipalities, does Midland look attractive?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question. Tiny is certainly in the best shape in terms of local taxation. You know, we've looked at the numbers before, and I use the price of gas analogy. You know, if gas per liter is being sold in Tiny for 39 cents and it's being sold in Midland for $1, where do you think the lineup at the pumps are going to be, right?
That's
so
right.
as long as we have this huge disparity in taxation between Tiny and Midland and Penetang. Midland and Penetang are neck and neck. Okay, 1 and 2 pretty well. And it's marginal, the differences. But, you know, that doesn't bode well, because the customer, again, the customer who's moving here, say, from the big smoke, who might want to build a home, they will look at those things. They will do their homework and say, well, okay, Midland's got a greater downtown area and it's more vibrant, but guess what? I get to use that stuff anyhow. Just for waking up and looking good. So why wouldn't I move in Tiny, keep $3,000 in my jeans, and then go to the cultural center and go to the library and go to the rec center? So they have a very favorable advantage at this moment, in my mind.
And then from the other side, if we look at business, would Tiny or Tay, now again, tourism business, maybe Tay, but Midland Penetang, if you're looking at finding a labor force who can get transportation to work,
this is it.
Then this is where we want to attract people
That's
to.
right.
So maybe some balance going on there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we see some fairly good things coming in that future. Are you able to do any presentations to that municipality group, or are you focusing strictly on the Midland side of it?
Interesting. We've had some folks reaching out from the other 3 communities, and we were thinking about whether or not we bolt on a page, you know, for the broader community, so we could keep people informed on what may be germane and important to them. But we're not quite ready to go there yet. There's a lot of work and infrastructure work and training and so on and so forth that happens, and it's all volunteer, right? So I don't want to push the members too hard. Maybe I've got nothing else to do, but some of the folks that offer their time up have full-time jobs too. So I'm very sensitive to that.
Yes, and not that you're sitting home.
No, not at all.
So, the biggest concerns you have coming up in the next few months, what are you going to be working on?
Well, I think the vision statement is something that council is wrestling with now, and you know, our hope is that they will synthesize the first document and make it meaningful to 17,000 people that can read it and recite it.
Right.
Okay. Like, get rid of some of the big words, and we can't be all things to all people. You know, guess what, Midland? We're not going to have our own NHL hockey team or CN Tau, right? So let's truly make the vision statement about something we can be. We can be. The second thing is there's a management staffing study that has been undertaken by council. I think the budget is in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, and the staffing study is really to assess you know, the efficiency, I guess, of the town and how we spend this close to $20 million a year. I would be hopeful that it, in the terms of reference and how we define the study, that we would get a little bit deeper, and we would ask ourselves, are we delivering these? First off, what services are needed and are required by the customer, and secondly, what's the best delivery model? Right. And if we don't have the best delivery model, let's go get it.
And that's where you get back into that. Should it be a government service? Should it be possibly something that's privatized then?
Exactly. And again, I don't want town people to think that, you know, we support all sorts of people leaving the positions. I think we have 156 or so town staff. This is not about that. People retire every week, every year, every month. And there are ways, if you plan these things, there are ways to make them happen with very little or no pain. The rest of it becomes fear-mongering. But if you don't have a plan to begin with, and you don't acknowledge that you have a problem to start with, then you'll never get to where we need to go.
And burying your head in the sand,
Yes.
the problem's still happening. It just means that when you do react,
That's
it's
right.
a reactionary model that you'd be looking at. And
Yes.
you're looking at something that is more a proactive model in this
Exactly.
case. So,
Do you want to join our group? That was well said.
and actually that was coming up, my next question is what kind of people are you looking for? What kind of skills would be really valuable to bring into the group that people that could say, you know, is it an hour a week, 10 hours a week?
Yeah.
You know, what kind of skills would you like to see coming in that would be great to help you out?
Well, we've got some very talented people now, accountants, marketing, website people. You know, they make all that stuff look great because I'm not really very good at that technology stuff. And we have a pretty strong core team of workhorses. So I'm not really looking for tons of people to do more work, except for in the next little while, we will form what we call shadow cabinets, okay? So, for example, we have a meeting this Friday on a shadow cabinet team that we're setting up for police, for fire, public works, and administration. And we have leaders of those teams, and on our website we'll basically post who those leaders are, and we will ask our members, if you have sort of an affinity or a passion for one of these groups, please get involved and let the leader know, and maybe they can pull you in on their team. And what we're going to do with the shadow cabinets is just take a deeper dive in the day-to-day activities and how we do spend money in the town, so that we can offer sort of a sober second thought from afar and say, have you thought of this, have you thought of that? But we would also be hopeful that the town from time to time would call me and say, hey, have you got a great finance person? And we do, by the way. Or have you got a great strategist who could help us to, you know, define our vision and in a non-threatening way.
Right.
And so we have a bunch of resources out there that we would offer up to the town. That's free. They're committed, they're motivated, there's no hostility. Again, it's not how we got here, it's what we do tomorrow when we wake up.
So again, the vision is really just a great volunteer group that is passionate about living in a fabulous location, and just making it better and better. And sometimes all you need is somebody just to give you the pulse.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you have 4,000 people who are just expressing opinions and taking those surveys and giving you feedback, so that then you can know even stronger that you are acting from a position that the majority of people who care about the community are interested in, then they should go to your site, they should get on your mailing list.
Yes.
And they should then participate in some polls and some surveys.
Fantastic. We welcome everyone.
Well, I have really enjoyed this conversation. I think I understand Midland community a little bit more, and I really appreciate you taking your time to come out and be with us this evening. And thank you at home for staying tuned as well. We'll be back next week with more Politically Speaking, only on Rogers TV.